Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is November 22nd, and right now we're looking at our frontal system moving through the area here on the Doppler radar, southwest BC, western Washington, getting some moderate rain included in this frontal system. You can see some precip occurring all the way down towards Salem, Oregon as well. Thunderstorm chance as we go through this afternoon, mainly Seattle south through some of the Willamette Valley, Washington, Oregon coast. Winter weather advisories, Cascades on east, freezing rain potential through eastern Washington up in the valleys and some of the mountain passes here. We'll take a look at that as well as this precipitation moves on into the eastern portions here as we go through this afternoon and evening. So let's dive right into things here. You can see the infrared satellite imagery. Here goes our system moving through the area today. Stronger storm is out over the Pacific Ocean here, but this is actually going to help build a ridge here and give us a couple dry days Wednesday and Thursday before the system weakens and moves through as a weak front on the day Friday. Then what everybody wants to know about, the cold air potential as we go on into next week. We'll take a look at that in some detail coming up here. So looking at Seattle, a little bit below average, but you can see 14 straight days with no precipitation. We set a record there, and that streak ends today, as you guys can tell just by looking outside. Look at this precipitation that occurred in 1998, the day before Thanksgiving, over 3 inches in a 24-hour period there for Seattle. And this was that precipitable water here, the atmospheric river that impacted the region here. Pretty nice diagram of that shown there. So some of you guys might remember that way back in 1998, the day before Thanksgiving. Now taking a look at things, what's coming up for today and tonight. Wintry mix. You can see the freezing rain possible extends all the way up towards Snoqualmie Pass here as well, I believe. You can see some snow may fall for Spokane here, and some of the higher terrains will get better amounts. But you can see I-90. You're probably going to be dealing with some winter weather driving conditions here, including for the Cascades. So heads up for that if you're out traveling around for Thanksgiving. Now here we're taking a look at the HRRR, the High Resolution Rapid Refresh model here. You can see this is about current, this frontal system moving through the area. You can see as it marches onto the east, it starts bringing some frozen precipitation to eastern Washington, snow for the higher terrain, and then this front keeps moving east, sagging south. You can see it impacting northeast Oregon, north Washington with some snowfall as well, and then it eventually kicks on through Idaho and Montana as we go through tonight and Wednesday morning. Then we get a pretty nice dry day Wednesday and Thursday across much of the region. Precipitation will be Vancouver Island north as we go on in through the day Thursday. Then a weak frontal system will arrive Friday. Now taking a look at the wind speeds here, you can see the NAM3 cam bringing a nice westerly surge down the Strait of Juan de Fuca. It might impact Whidbey Island here, possible 50-mile-per-hour gusts out there, maybe some nuisance power outages. Some gusts up into the low 50s showing up along the Washington, Oregon coast here on the NAM. And as well down towards Tacoma and Olympia, well, mid and upper 40s, possible nuisance power outages. Seattle about 40, nice blustery November frontal system moving through the area here, and the pretty typical ridges and higher terrains here getting some decent winds as well as we go on into. This goes through Thursday afternoon here. This is the HRRR 3KM. This goes through about this afternoon, and you can see some blustery winds. That westerly surge coming down the Strait of Juan de Fuca impacting Whidbey Island is there. Some gusty winds for the coastline there, maybe the South Puget Sound as well. Willamette Valley, blustery, typical November frontal system moving through. Now looking at this accumulated rain, freezing rain in inches. You can see where this threat exists here across the basin here, eastern Washington. This cold air is trapped, and you can see these totals kind of big totals, almost over half an inch of freezing rain here showing up. And this is because cold air is trapped here up against the east slopes of the Cascades. There's a little bit of an easterly component here across the area this morning. It keeps that cold air pumping through the Snoqualmie Pass area. And this is pretty typical sometimes as you get this cold air trapped in eastern Washington. Keep this freezing rain going up the Snoqualmie Pass here a little bit longer than it normally would. But as the frontal system passes through, it'll erase that cold air through the Snoqualmie Pass area as the gradient switches to an onshore flow into the region here, but you can see where this threat lies. So watch out across Snoqualmie Pass as you go through later this morning and this afternoon, and including eastern Washington as well. Now taking a look here, here's that 80-meter wind speed here on the NAM. If you look closely here, you can kind of see that southeast component here towards the Snoqualmie Pass area as we go through this morning. Now that should switch around about a 22Z, so we're getting towards early afternoon. That should switch around here, but that's why that cold air can get trapped there at Snoqualmie Pass. Now, taking a look here, this is 2-meter temperature. Look at the cold air trapped there in eastern Washington this morning. You can see it doesn't get scoured out until about afternoon. You can see it finally goes above freezing there, kind of near Stampede, Snoqualmie Pass as we go through early, late afternoon here, but you can kind of see a little tongue of cold air getting banked up against the east slopes of the Cascades. So heads if you're traveling eastbound on I-90 for that, including on in through eastern Washington. Now taking a look at what everybody wants to know about. Here's the European on the left, the GFS on the right. This is ensemble mean. This is yesterday afternoon's run, 18,000 feet, 500 millibars. Here goes the system today, that trough moving through a blustery system. Then we build that ridge, that powerful system out here, impacting mainly southeast Alaska, Haida Gwaii out there, portions of western BC, mainly north of Vancouver Island as we go through the day Thursday. And then you can see things start to change. We get this big ridge out here starting to allow some cooler air to move down across southeast Alaska towards the Pacific Northwest. Some pretty good model agreement here on both the GFS and the European on the left here showing that. And that lobe is not too cold here, but then there's another one that keeps showing in the models on the back side of this, and you can kind of see it there open up, which would be colder. It'd be more of a polar. It would have more polar origins here. Let's just say that. And you can see this trough continue to be open here across Pacific Northwest. We get this high pressure over western Alaska that allows this northerly flow to bring down some colder air into the region. Right now, we don't know the trajectory of these systems as of yet. It doesn't look like a huge Arctic outbreak right now, but that can change. You know, we're still a ways out here, and we are still getting some model disagreement run to run here on just how much cold air is going to make it down into the region here. So right now, this is the pattern, though, for introducing colder air into the region. And as we go into the extended a little bit more here, again, the European on the left, you see the troughing remains open in the big ridge over western Alaska there on both the GFS and the European with a little bit more troughing there. And we're getting way out there at this point. This is Tuesday. Actually, this will be Monday afternoon, December 5th. So this is what we're watching for now. Let's take a couple more looks at things here. This is the GFS. The 12Z hot off the presses here. So if we go on into next week is what we want to know about. You can see this colder air starting to march down through British Columbia here. And as we go on into the extended, look at some of this cold air that makes it all the way down into southern BC here and comes off the coastline. And some of these trajectories, if they line up right, could even bring some low elevation snowfall across the region. But that's getting ahead of ourselves right now. It's purely a fantasy forecast now. We're just trying to determine how much of this cold air is going to move down into our region. But pretty chilly air here showing up in the extended on this brand new GFS run that just came in. As you can see, that sag down across some of the area. I mean, look at some of these temperatures, over 30 degrees below average across some of the eastern Washington, even western Washington and BC for that matter. So let's take a little bit wider look at things here. We're looking at 10,000 feet, 700 millibars, northern hemispheres, Russia, North Pole, Alaska, Yukon, BC, Washington, Oregon, Hawaiian Islands, Pacific Ocean is here. Let's put this into motion here and see what's coming. There goes our system moving through the area today. The ridge builds for a couple days here. Then a weak frontal system will move through this weekend here. Then the colder air starts to arrive from the northwest. You can see pretty good model agreement here on both the GFS and the European model. And then you can see the colder air back here in this polar lobe start to reach down towards British Columbia here on the European and the GFS. GFS is colder across the Northwest Territories and the Yukon here, trying to spread that air down towards Pacific Northwest here. And then as we go a little bit on into the future here, you see the European starting to bring another polar lobe across Alaska towards southeast Alaska and the Gulf of Alaska there, but the GFS not quite showing it there. So you can see how the models start to diverge a little bit as we get out there, but pretty good model agreement that we're going to bring some chillier air down to the Pacific Northwest. We're going to figure out these details day at a time here as we go. Right now, this, as you can see, you know, we're well off into next weekend and early next week. So we'll continue to watch this day by day. Now, this is hot off the presses, the 12Z GFS. Same map here, Northern Hemisphere. It's the North Pole, Alaska, BC, Washington, Oregon. There goes our system today. Ridge builds for a couple days here. Weak frontal system moves through. Then the colder air starts to come across the Gulf of Alaska here towards Pacific Northwest, bringing some pretty chilly air with it. And look at this polar lobe that the GFS wants to throw down towards the Pacific Northwest as we go through Tuesday night next week here. Look at this pretty cold air coming off the coast of British Columbia over the Pacific Ocean. This would be kind of interesting here. So we'll just continue to watch this for now. It'll be interesting to watch these model runs come in as they're pretty much settled on bringing chillier air as we go through the next weekend into early next week. We just don't know how much, and we don't know what kind of trajectory it's going to take just yet. And those details mean everything, folks, for trying to get lowland snow here in the Pacific Northwest. But it does look like a pretty good pattern for some mountain snows across the region here, maybe even down into California here at times. So taking a look at Seattle, you can see the ensemble run from the European yesterday showing some potential for some snowfall on these individual ensemble runs. One went over a foot, but you can kind of throw that out at this point. We're just kind of looking to see when this pattern change might take place right at the end of November into early December here. And this came out a couple days ago too. This is seasonal temperature outlook. I think I forgot to show this. This is for December, January, February. You can see the below average signal for Washington, Oregon, some of the northern states here, above average signal for precipitation across much of the Pacific Northwest. This is the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. National Weather Service now picking up on this pattern here for the western portion of the United States, November 29th through December 5th, and near normal precipitation amounts. You know, we're not looking for any big atmospheric rivers at this point, especially with this northwest flow coming across the region, a little bit moisture starved on some of these systems. So yeah, we're going to deal with this system coming through today. Watch for that winter weather driving as you go onto the Cascades and the higher elevations as you go east of the mountains there on in through today. Then we're going to have a couple dry days as we go on into tomorrow and Thursday before we bring another frontal system. Then the colder air looks like it's going to arrive next weekend on in through next week. We're going to be watching day by day and playing this game of watching the model runs in this cat and mouse game of where will these polar lobes set up, what will the trajectory be, how much cold air will get into the region. So anyway, we'll do this again tomorrow. And yeah, thanks for all my new members. Thanks for all my new subscribers. We're over 13,000 members now. And let's continue getting the word out here to the Pacific Northwest. And we'll do this again tomorrow, and I'll talk to you guys then.